Okay, this is UAP. Just going to go over this. This is about Grusch. This is a thought exercise about what's going to happen after this all gets digested. Grusch has done a whistleblower on alien retrieval teams, alien vehicle retrieval teams, and alien body retrievals. I believe he did. I'm not sure if he mentioned live aliens or not. Let me just go over this as quickly as I can. You know, he spent 4 years gathering evidence. He followed procedures, used the chain of command. This is not an overnight thing. The guy he presented his whistleblower claim to became his lawyer. That's how much he believed in him. In my opinion, everything he said is accurate, and there's more coming. He is following DOD release rules, and in my opinion, Grusch has simply confirmed UAP research over the last 25 years. I think he's totally kosher, and everything he said is true. And he's from Pittsburg. How's he going to lie? He's from Pittsburg. All right. Bob Odine, Wendell Stevens, Bob Lazar, all vindicated by his whistleblowing report. Now, let's expect after the acceptance of this report, you know, we have no national press on this. He has spoken to Congress. We don't have any visible or auditory proof of what's going on. But let me just go over what I think is going to happen next, or could happen next. First of all, I think this attack on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies is likely a ruse to take control of interstellar currency. You got to put on your tinfoil hats if you want to listen to this, guys, and you got to listen to the end, because there is a rub. There is a twist to the story. This is one of the things about Bitcoin when it first came out, was that it can be transmitted to outer space. So I think that the powers that be might have had a heads up what was going on, and they are taking actions now saying, we want to control these cryptocurrencies. We do not want them to be out in the wild. And it could be because we're going to have open trade. We don't know, but this is just a thought I've had on this. I think it's quite true. Now, there are corporations involved that have been involved with the UAP issue for years. They have hidden technology. Now, here's a list of the publicly traded U.S. firms known to contract to Area 51, and that's the stock symbol to the left, and I'll just read these off. AECOM, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Scientific Applications International Corporation, or SAIC. Bobby Inman was there. A lot of the people heavily involved in the UAP scene have worked for SAIP, the SAIC, also remote viewing. We could add to this, Raytheon is one that Dr. Greer likes to mention a lot. But any of you investors out there, if you want to know what the play is on this, that's it. Now, these firms are likely to have gravity drives. This is probably what they already have in hand. Gravity drives, zero-point energy, antimatter drives, stellar drives, all this kind of stuff that they would have been reverse engineering for years here. Interstellar navigation, advanced integrated circuits and computers, metamaterials, spacefaring vehicles. There was a guy who gave a testimony, and he was in Area 51 working as a consultant, and he had mentioned that, and this was back in the 60s, and he had said the computers they had then were 75 years ahead of anything that were in the public. All right. So they're going to have all this tech that they have reverse engineers. There's vehicles and habitats, space habitats, all this stuff is likely to be monetized, okay? After this all comes out. It's going to be monetized in the open. And, Corso is in the middle. He's like Zellick. He's in the middle of all this, and he seeded much of this technology. And, of course, the reverse engineering that's been going on at Area 51 and other areas, that is also going to come into play. But just to let you know, that's the corporate angle, at least part of it. Raw material trade is likely on a wider scale. They say that there is already raw material trade. One of the things they're taking from Earth is water, okay, which is kind of scary. But bismuth is a known trade item, and allegedly. This is something that they want, and this is in the sample of a hull, which Linda Moulton Howe has bismuth in it. China is far and away the largest producer of bismuth in the world. So that implies a connection there. I think obviously there is a EB connection with UAPs in China. And by the way, it's openly studied in China, UAPs, and many sightings there. Pretty well known that there are already USA-led asteroid mining operations underway. And this is via Secrets U.S. Space Force and Corporate Alliance. Read MJ12 here. So this is, there was an interview the other day with a guy that just wrote a book. He was talking about this, but it's pretty well known. The asteroids are rich in precious metals and so forth. So what I'm saying here is each country, region, faction likely to have a relationship with a different even race, perhaps. Moving forward, the next, here's a list of some known relationships. The USA is got a relationship with the tall whites, the Nordics, and certain grays. Not all the grays. There are bad grays, good grays. There's 20 different kind of grays, they say. China and Russia, unknown. European Union, likely same as the USA. And interestingly, Germany, during World War II, had a reptoid relationship. So whether that is still in existence, we don't know. Interestingly, a factoid here, William Tompkins was asked, he said that most of the scientists reverse engineering crafts at Area 51 secretly developing weapons systems. He was asked, and I don't want to start an international row here, but he was asked what were they for? Because he says they're not going to be used by the U.S., they're going to be used by Germany. They were German paperclip scientists. And he said to attack America. That's what William Tompkins said. I didn't say that. Okay. Now, let's just move on from here. Now, there are legal issues and crimes against humanity that have to be addressed here. Many EBs in the past contact with Earth have been privateers operating outside of interstellar law of planetary sovereignty. So in other words, supposedly there's an interstellar council. They have planetary sovereignty. They are not allowed to interfere. This is much like Star Trek, which is taken, they say, from a real contactee's diary. Journal, whatever. They say that you should not contact or influence a planet until they gain interstellar travel. So that would imply that the ones that have been contacting us, and I've mentioned this in other videos, are privateers, criminals, basically. operating outside of interplanetary interstellar law. The criminal acts that have been done by UAPs, and Dr. Greer disagrees. He says they're all positive, but this is very well documented. Abduction, kidnapping, theft of genetic material, slavery. What else do we have here? We have deaths have occurred on different levels. There's been accidental deaths, and there have been, supposedly dissected bodies found in certain. They mentioned that in Roswell. They didn't say what kind of bodies were dissected, whether they were animal or human, but there's mention in other recovery stories of human body parts. So deaths have occurred, unwanted, ongoing lifetime contacts, abductions, hybrid creation, unwanted hybrid creation. Now, mostly these have been conducted via even agreements with MJ-12 for technology exchange. So this goes back to Eisenhower meeting at the military base next to White Sands. See my video on White Sands about the agreement he made with the Greys. The Nordics had contacted him first, and they said, get rid of your nukes and we'll give you the tech. And he said, no, we're not going to do that. So he went with the Greys. But this was under the direction of MJ-12 before it went completely out of his control, and he gave the military-industrial complex speech. Moving forward here. Let's go to the next page. Convention now is that USA-led Space Force has protective technology limiting unwanted visits and the ability to down or divert UAPs. So they supposedly have this. Some countries, however, and regions are allowing incursions for technology exchange and so forth. So not everybody's playing by the same games. I think this implies China, for example, or Russia, but I think mostly China is the feeling I got when I read it. It implies there will be varied agreements between regions and even white hat, black hat. So, there's going to be good evens and bad evens, and the good ones are the ones that associate with us, the bad ones that associate with our enemies. Or will one dominant even race take over? That's another possibility. The evens have fascist type governments. This council they have supposedly is like the United Nations. So there may be, one race that takes over, appointed by this council or whatever. We don't know. But this is all a thought exercise. Let's move forward. Now, enforcement will continue by USA-led contingent, in my opinion. Okay, so the U.S. is going to continue limiting access and operating. There's supposedly a protective grid and space weapons and land-based space weapons and scalar weapons and so forth. And I have down here, EV races have fascist-like political systems, so they likely will want to deal with a single Earth entity. I think this is part of the One Earth government argument, but it certainly would make sense from their standpoint. As I said in one of my past videos, they don't have any diversity in their populations, okay? And they have fascist-type governments. So I think that implies they would want to deal with one person. In my opinion, a USA-led Earth coalition will limit contact with Ebens as a diplomatic mission. Okay, so in other words, the U.S. is going to take the lead. It's going to be, like the diplomatic missions are now, secret pretty much. And I have here UAP flights and landings, if they are, mentioned and outed, will be limited to certain areas. Okay? And contact with humans will also be limited as it is now. So, in other words, if let's say there is going to be a recognition of all this, it's still going to be tightly held. I don't think we're going to see aliens walking on the corner or anything like that. But stay to the end here. I got a different idea of what might happen as well. But let's move forward. Now, occult organizations already in contact with Ebens will be curtailed as their contacts are likely Eben privateers or pirates. So this would be the, Freemasons, Skull and Bones, Illuminati type thing. This is if everything is public. I think this is what's going to happen. Because obviously they are involved with, privateer Ebens. Present USA corporate Eben contacts will also have to be vetted and limited or stopped. So in other words, if all this information comes public, they're going to have to do all these procedural things to try to limit these privateer Ebens who have been working with us up until now to get them out of the system. And these occult organizations, make no doubt about it, they have made contact, telepathically and other ways, and there's other explanations for this as well. I'm going to go through in another video, but I think this is an issue that's going to be addressed. Now, this is the rub, okay? All that I've said up till now, this is all based on the open, recognized contact and association with the Ebens. Now, the U.S. military-industrial complex, read MJ-12, may still maintain control and secrecy, however. MJ-12 is not likely to give up. And they are deeply ensconced in everything and internationally ensconced. So, I'm sorry, everything I said up until now was conceptual, but I think the reality is MJ-12, and I'm going to start calling them the Cabal, because I don't want to say MJ-12 too much. Only the most basic facts will be released and admitted as true. Okay? So they're going to strip this down. Yes, there was an Eben craft found. Yes, there was a dead Eben, and they're going to limit it to one case, one Eben, whatever, and that's it. Committees will be formed to study the phenomenon and, placate people while concealing all MJ-12 ongoing Eben activities and the wealth and power they enable. So really what MJ-12 is about is wealth and power, because they're mining asteroids now, creating giant amounts of wealth. Some say that they're involved in drug smuggling and so forth to finance their own activities. Some people say they're into slave trading. Okay, every nasty thing you can imagine. But I doubt very much if MJ-12 is the Cabal is going to allow this to be stopped. I think they're going to put up a front, as I mentioned. So, therefore, a second disclosure will be necessary to reveal the real truth. So we're going to get version 1 of the truth, I think, out of all of this. Okay? And you note that this whistleblower has not mentioned MJ-12. He has not mentioned the cabal. Sorry, I'm going to say cabal. He is only talking about, what he knows for sure. So, in my opinion, the wealth and power MJ-12 has privatized through this rogue even relationship and technology exchange over 60 years of continuous operation following the American coup in 63, and that is the assassination of Kennedy, will prevail. I think the cabal is going to prevail. Unfortunately, only information publicly released will be admitted to. So anything they say behind doors in the Senate or wherever they're going to do this meeting, none of that is going to ever get out. And this is my take on this right now. Now, Dr. Greer has proposed amnesty for all crimes committed under this regime. This will not be necessary at this point because the military-industrial complex will not allow this information to be released. Okay? You don't have to worry about giving anybody amnesty because nobody is going to know about this. And they will take steps to ensure it is kept from the public at all costs. And I have here wet. Look at JFK. So, politicians in the USA will not act against the cabal, in my opinion. Will the Ebens expose it? Unlikely, in my opinion, because of the law-abiding Ebens certainly do not interfere. They maintain planetary sovereignty. Would keeping this MJ-12 rule secret be the basis for the false flag attack mentioned by Wernher von Braun? In other words, are they going to put up a false flag, fake alien invasion? This is something Greer talks about. Is this, and I said this is the greatest science fiction in the world, this topic, but this false flag, would they do this to demonize all the Ebens and therefore keep all of their illicit activities secret going forward? Wernher von Braun said that this is going to happen. Wernher von Braun was on the inside. Maybe he knew what was going to happen. Maybe he knew that they're never going to give up the wealth and power they've gained over 60 years of work. Anyway, if they did start a false flag, in other words, the Ebens would not attack. They would use holograms and so forth. Our alien reproduction vehicles to stage an attack. Would it stop further revelations? Interestingly enough, if you read the Byrne document and other documents regarding MJ-12, they say the only legal release of information would take place on this topic only if there were a mass public attack by the Ebens. So, there you go. That would certainly stop all further revelations and further outward contact with the Ebens anyway. An interesting concept. MJ-12 versus the Ebens in a proxy war to hide the truth and help them maintain their power. Okay, this is UAP. I hope you like this. Thought it would be interesting to see what would happen going forward. Not too rosy, but let's see what happens.